Now they want to talk.
Good morning. This is Maria Quattrone for the Be the Solution podcast, episode 2 for 2022. Welcome, Stacy Sanseverino.
Thank you.
I wanted to be in a business that I did not have a ceiling. Take a pen and a piece of paper, draw a line, draw another line next to it. At 365 days, if you drew 365 lines, you started here with one line, but look how far you've come.
Good morning, Stacy. How are you today?
I'm really great, and I'm really thankful for the invitation to be on your podcast. And I love the title of your podcast, "Be the Solution," because for my entire career, I've always thought of us as real estate agents as being part of the solution. And I tell my agent trainees that we're not here to sell houses. We're really here to help people get to the next step in life, whatever that is, and that the house is in the way. And I'll often joke with my buyer clients, like, I could be helping you buy a pair of shoes. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm here to help you make a great decision. So all that to say is that your title really resonates with me, and I'm honored to be here.
I am honored to have you. I'm so glad we ran into each other at that party, that holiday party.
I know, right?
Remember? It was serendipitous and all meant to be. So let's get right into it. You have been in this business for, gosh, what is it? It's almost 20 years, 18
Yeah.
years. Same as me, right?
Yeah, May it'll be 18 years, and I've been a landlord for 21. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you get into the business?
Like a lot of people, by accident. I had gone to grad school in Philly. That's what brought me here. And I was working in an office. I was the bottom person on the totem pole. It was only 3 of us, so of course. And then I started to arrive later and later and later to work, and I was more and more dissatisfied. It was urban planning. And dealing with the city is very challenging at times and very slow moving, and working with neighborhood groups. So I was like, come on, people, like, I need things to have like a time period and an accomplishment, right?
It's called How Much by When.
Yes. How much by when? I like that. And so then I just noticed, I was like, I'm not really a good employee. Like, I just started to notice this about myself. So I had made some life changes. I quit my job. I was renovating a house. By that time, I was already investing. And if you know me today, I am not handy at all. But I did a couple of daring things. I started to demo this house, and I was starting to run out of money. It was late 2003. And my buyer's agent at the time was like, hey, you're not doing anything right now. Why don't you get your license and be a buyer's agent with me? And I was like, okay, let's do that. And so I did. And it was the best decision I'd ever made.
Wow. And all because you decided to demo this house and you were dissatisfied and you said, what the heck, let's try it out.
Yeah. I'm like such an optimistic person that I just said, yeah, like, years later, my sister said to me, when you quit your job, I was like, that is crazy. Like, I quit my job. I was living on the cash out refi and renovating this house, and I was just quickly running out of money. But I was like, okay, sure. This is the next opportunity. I'm just going to get my license. Like a lot of people, what could be hard about it?
Oh, yes, it is so easy. It's so simple. It actually is not that hard if you follow systems and process.
Well, exactly. Right? I joke that it's cheap to get into real estate, but it's really expensive to fail out, because, the failure rate, is like what, 85, 90% after 5 years, people fail at this. And I really believe it's from this cycle, what I call like the gross recruiting cycle, which starts with the fact that our licenses it's a subscription service, if you really think about it. So the national and local associations, they're not really invested in us, in our success, so long as we keep our license active and new people are coming in, right? So we have what we call independent contractor-itis, where brokers are afraid to tell new people how to be successful. But new people don't know how to be successful in our business, like you said, right? Like, I'm successful, you're successful, we've got proven ways of being successful. Like, don't you want to be successful? Like, chances are 1 in 10 people will wing it and figure it out, right? So you and I are the 1 in 10. And that's not to slam anybody. It's like, but we figured it out somehow. My goal is to help that like middle group of people that really intended earnestly to have a career here, to get the dedicated and detailed training that they need to have the confidence to go out. Like every major franchise has, there are programs to get people out in the field talking to people. I joke with agents, it's really easy to get business when you're a new person. Nobody respects what we do. They don't really know the detailed knowledge or, negotiation skills that go into what we do. So it's easy to get a client when you're new, and that's kind of frightening. But a lot of the times we don't really have that in-depth training where people actually learn their contract, and that's really the foundation. Like, you may not need, I've been talking for a long time about one clause in the contract that I never needed until this past summer. And it was like, hey guys, guess what? I've been harping on this one little detail. I actually used it this summer.
What is it?
Well, you're going to know the answer, but I like to test people's knowledge, and I like to ask them, what happens if the interest rate for the buyer goes higher than the maximum rate specified in the contract?
They can go.
Is that what you think the contract says?
I don't know. What happens? There's a series of things that can happen.
Yeah, tell me them.
Well, if it goes higher than it states, if they can get finance still, they can buy the house.
Yeah, but what if the buyer is like, I don't want to buy the house anymore. And they're like, I literally had a client that was like, this is a good excuse to get out, because they were tired. They had to do appraisal repairs. Like, they were just feeling stretched by the time we got to the rate to be locked in, and it was higher.
So how much higher? It has to be, there's a range.
Right. So the
range in the contract.
Yeah. So the first line of defense is actually the seller has the opportunity to pay the points for the buyer to stay in the contract. So I'm willing to bet a lot of deals that died because of the maximum interest rate was because agents didn't realize that the seller could have paid to keep the buyer in.
Do you think the sellers would do that in today's market?
It really depends. I mean, in this deal that I had, not every house is a winner. There's plenty of houses that are still sitting on the market. Everybody
talks are expiring.
What's that?
In fact, there still expires.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I'm looking at, I just listed a condo in like Kensington South, Old Kensington, whatever you want to call it. And the condos are taking 100+ days, to sell. So it's like, I give my seller the weekly report, and it's like, okay, yeah, like we're 7 days in, 2 showings, like, the median days on market is 141 days. Like, it's discouraging. But the point is that, yes, in certain instances where the seller, like where the buyer is having remorse and the seller has already made plans to move on, the seller has that right to do that. And then if the buyer is like, no, well, they're in default, and that at least gives the seller some, tactic to keep the deal together. And most agents don't know that. Like, most agents just don't know that.
Well, that's something that's very, very detailed. And that's why you're like the queen of the contract, right?
I love the contract. I literally,
you have a whole class dedicated for 6 to 8 weeks on just the contract.
Well, yes, because, it's not just the agreement of sale, which is, 14 pages. It's all the forms that go with it. It's
all the addenda
home sale contingencies, pre and post settlement possession, how to submit a reply, how to make changes. Yeah, there's at least 40 forms that I teach.
Oh, that's all the contracts. Yes. That's not referring to just the agreement of sale. It's a lot.
Yeah, and the new construction agreement of sale. I don't really go too detailed into the vacant land, because I figure if you're going to do vacant land, you can read it on your own at some other time. But if you get the, main agreement and then understand the differences with the new construction, like, that's a really solid basis to help your client. And, it's funny because a criticism I have gotten is that I'm too detailed. And that's from people who are not my students. When people are in my programs, they actually love the detail, and they tell me, because I will tell them things that nobody else is really teaching them. And there's a great metaphor, the peanut butter and jelly example. Have you heard of this one?
I have not.
So basically it's like, okay, so tell me the steps, Maria, to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Well, I'm going to go into the cabinet. I'm going to get out the refrigerator. I'm going to get out the peanut butter and jelly. I'm going to put it on the counter. I'm going to go into the freezer and pop out the bread, pop it into the oven, get it warm, put it on a plate, open the jars, get a knife and a spoon, put the peanut butter on one side with the knife, put the jelly on the other side with the spoon, put it together, And then I'm going to cut it in half, and I like the triangle. So it'll be cut in the triangle form.
So you just gave the punchline away, because most people are going to tell you that to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you get some peanut butter and jelly and you spread it on bread and there you go. Like, so that is mostly like a class, whether it's a 3-hour class with, our local association, or if it's in your brokerage or an agent to agent, it's mostly like this very high level. And they're going through all of those like little nuances, but when the student leaves, they don't remember all the in-between steps. Like you said, get the bread in the freezer. Well, what if they're looking for the bread in the pantry or in the refrigerator? Like they have to remember, oh, the bread's in the freezer. But they didn't know that before because they've never been to this kitchen before. So unlike a 3-hour association class
That's a
or
good analogy, Stacy.
yeah, and I didn't make it up. I like to, copy people who say
That's
smart
good.
things.
We're allowed to do that.
Yeah. But yeah, so like the way I look at the training that I provide that's different than what we see in the industry is that you either have the broker teaching maybe 1 hour a week, maybe it's on the same topic. So at best, it's like the same topic every week because you have new agents starting every day. So you at least need to get them, wet with the contract in the first week of them starting. But then, like you said, there are all these forms and disclosures and addenda. So when do they learn those? So maybe the broker's teaching the buyer agency docs, the seller agency docs, and the contract 1 hour. So it's, 3 times a month. But agents are starting every day of the week. So, and then those class repeat. So they don't really go in depth more than that. Then you can go to the, local association for 3 hours on a Friday. I think it's like, that's what they offer. And you can learn it more. But then what happens when you're actually needing to use the material? Like you'll never absorb it all in that one sitting. And going to the same class over and over again might not get you the depth of knowledge that you need. And then when you're actually needing it, you don't have a resource that's like a human to really help you through it. So, I took a lot of classes like CRS, ABR, the Certified Residential Specialist, Accredited Buyer Agency, Short Sales and Foreclosure Resources. Like I'm sure you have lots of designations too. So like I went out when I got all those, designations. I took all those classes, but they were like 2-day classes and I would come home and there's nobody from those classes to help me implement it. It was all on me to implement it. So
this is how you came up with the idea of putting together the school to teach the real estate agents how to do this. This is the premise of how this all came about.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because like there have been iterations of me experimenting, informal roles at my brokerage with being a productivity coach. And I was like, you know what? I've noticed that productivity coaches get burned out by having to train their agents because they do a lot of emergency spot training and they end up repeating themselves a lot. So either they're burning out because they're doing what they shouldn't be doing, or they're not getting paid to do what a trainer should be doing or what their brokerage should be doing to train them. So I was like, let me combine what my passion is, which is the training, into a coaching and training program. And so then I laid it out in a couple different ways. And the ones when I had the highest standards and people signed an agreement that they were coming, like that had the most success. When it's kind of up to the agent whether or not they're going to come, like life will get in the way. But the thing that broke the straw that broke the camel's back was one day when I was teaching a class and like 2 out of like 24 people showed up. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I am not going to be here. Like, I just had it. Because usually if one person shows up, I will teach you. If you show up, I'm here for you. I'm 110% here for you. But that one day I was like, okay, you just told me, everybody just told me with their actions, you don't want to adhere to somebody else's schedule. I get it. Guess what? I'm going to deliver all my content once, online, in videos, directed to you in sequence of how I think it'll be best useful for you to learn it, from a high level, then to a detailed level, using examples and showing how the forms could be used. And I'm going to deliver it to you online. And, this is what you tell me you want. You don't want to come to the class. You have another job, or like it just doesn't line up with your schedule. I get it. Fine. So you want to be successful? Here's a way to be successful. So that's kind of what transitioned me from in-person training. And this is way before COVID. To actually getting a learning management system that I, subscribe to deliver the content. This was like mid 2019. So yeah.
So how did you decide what to put into the courses?
Well, I just downloaded everything in my brain. Yeah. So I thought, one of the big things that buyers or agents get hung up on is like, well, okay, so making an offer. I literally got an offer the other month from an agent who just gave me the agreement, and it wasn't even fully filled out. And I was like, okay, can you send me this addendum, this form, this, the buyer's financial information form, like I need all these documents. I had to ask multiple times. So the first thing I created was an exchange of documents form. So it's like, okay, as the buyer's agent, these are the forms I sign with my buyer. These are the forms I send over to the agent. As the other agent, these are the forms I sign with my seller, and these are the ones I give back to the other agent. And then thinking about all 40 documents or, more that we use in any given transaction, who gets it when and who signs it, just as like a roadmap. Another thing I did was, and actually this was fun for me. So I love little arts and craftsy projects. Like in another life, I probably would be like an elementary school teacher because I love like office supplies and markers. But I sat down on my condo floor and I cut up the 14-page agreement of sale and I rearranged it into themes because, the timeline of the transaction is all over the place. It doesn't go like, day one is on page one, paragraph one, day 5 deadline. Sorry. There's maybe the mailman's here. My dogs are going a little crazy right now.
The furry babies.
What's that? Yeah, my fur babies. They're very vicious. They're 6 and 12 pounds. But yeah, so I created a thematic review of the agreement of sale so people can understand like the condition of the property is not only discussed in 11, 12, and 13. It's also discussed in paragraph 15, municipal certifications. It's also discussed in paragraph 18, maintenance and risk of loss. It's also discussed in paragraph 8, if the appraiser, lender or insurance person requires a repair. So these themes are seen throughout the contract. So not only do I go in depth paragraph by paragraph, but I also kind of recombine it into a thematic. So you have a thematic understanding of each of these themes. So it's like the condition, the money, the timeline, seller representations, inclusions, exclusions, what I call the rules of engagement, like the basic legalese of the contract, who's who, what's what. That's like page 1. And I'm sure, default and termination and return to deposits. Like that's another favorite clause of mine, because here's another trick question. I don't know if this is a trick question. I'm going to test you out, Maria. I'm sure you know the answer.
I do not. I'm not the contract person, so I probably wouldn't know the answer.
Aren't you the broker though? Aren't you the broker?
I am not the broker.
You're not the broker. Okay,
No.
okay, so
God Almighty.
So okay,
Stacy, you and I would make a great team because I'm exactly the opposite of you. I am the sales and marketing person. I make it rain, and then that's about it.
Okay, well, I got to say something though. I make it rain, and I teach other agents how to do their job.
Well, that's good. You can. You're teaching a lot of people, so there'll be less people that, hopefully give us bad contracts.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's through no fault of his own. Like if agents, this is the way I look at it. Agents aren't failing out of the industry. The industry is failing agents.
Well, I think there's a lot of issues, right? So I think if you work in an environment where you start and you work on a team, you have a much better chance of a success rate, and you have a lot more hand holding, at least in most of the teams, at least in our team anyway.
Yeah.
Because like we don't let contracts go out without being checked by my office first.
Yeah. I mean, that is a standard that you have. And I don't think that standard is held across teams. And I would argue, I was counseling an agent. He was asking my advice about, hey, I'm thinking about, joining this team because I want that direct mentorship. And I'm like, well, they might actually be really focused on their lead generation. And that's a big thing I see where agents are so busy that they want another agent to take their leads. But if you find it challenging to, convert those leads, how is a new agent going to convert those leads? And they don't know the job. And then you have to take your eye off your lead generation pedal to focus on this new agent who may or may not work out because HGTV taught them that real estate was easy. NAR said, here, just give us a little bit of money. You know, it's not expensive to get your license. It's cheaper to get your license than open up a hot dog stand.
No doubt.
So
you need a license for the hot dog stand.
Yeah.
You need the stand, and you need the hot dogs.
Yeah. And yet the opportunity, you know, your intro video says you wanted an opportunity without limits. You know, I look at people going from Wharton, I'm like, I'm killing it. I didn't go to Wharton. I didn't have to pay for that. You know, like I learned it on the job. And that's the scariest thing, that most people are learning it on the job. And yet they've never been their own boss. And that is like the biggest, I think, the biggest hurdle for most people is that they want that flexibility in schedule. And I like to joke with them. I'm sure you've heard this joke before. It's like, yeah, you want a flexible schedule. You get to choose any 70 hours a week that you work, you know, any 70.
No, it's true. And when I hear that from people, and I say, look, this is more than your 9 to 5, but you will get more from it than your 9 to 5.
Yeah. And you know what, though, the pain of getting fired is not there. So the pain is so far out in the future. And there's always that, you know, like I said, I'm an optimist. So a lot of people get into this business very optimistic that they will succeed. And so they haven't failed yet, you know, so they're hanging on, but nobody's there to fire them. So it isn't until like they look back, it's been 6 months and they didn't do a deal, that they realized it's really expensive not to do a deal. And I was just writing an anniversary card to somebody who started with my training a year ago. And in 2020, she did 2 rental deals. And in this past year, she did 7 deals pending and closed. So 1 pending and 6 closed for 1.6 million. And I was like, that's amazing. You know, that's amazing. And, you know, like if she had just kept doing rental deals, like earning $600 twice a year, that is not a life. You know, that is not replacing a salary. And in fact, only in this couple years in a row, I did this study on the 23,000 plus agents in our MLS that showed that only 1 in 5 agents did 3 million or more, which I'm not sure how your splits work exactly, but that's about 55 grand where I work. So only 1 in 5 agents is actually replacing a salary.
Yeah, the average real estate agent makes about 40,000 and change a year.
Well, you can't talk about averages because the Mike McCanns of the world are going to bring up the people who are doing nothing. So you have to talk about the median.
Oh,
So if you're going to talk about,
I don't know then. I know it's not enough money to live.
Yeah, it's not enough. And it's not what people got into this for, you know. But yeah, like, so when I did these studies, like, I just looked and saw, you know, 1 in 5 are, you know, replacing a salary. And then I saw about 1 in 5 were not doing any deals. That middle 60% were doing like 1 to 12 deals, like with only about 30% even doing like 4 to 12 deals, which is, you know, less than the 3 million that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And my goal is like, these people, like, I'm sure 1 in 5 didn't intend to be an agent. Maybe they wanted to get their own investment deals and it made sense for them to get their license. 1 in 5 is going to be successful no matter what, or really 1 in 10, but 1 in 5 for the sake of argument is going to be successful no matter what. And I've coached both kinds of people. The one is super rewarding and the other is super frustrating. But there's this middle 60% of people who earnestly wanted to create a career out of this. And, you know, 55 grand would be great, right? Because their other opportunities are not great. And, you know, and then the opportunity to make even more. So my goal is to be honest with people and say, this is really what it means to be a real estate agent and how to be successful. And if you want to hold yourself to this standard, then I want to give you a fighting chance, you know, but I find a lot of people have a hard time showing up, you know, and it's not easy being your own boss. Like, nobody's going to fire you, you know, and agencies, quite honestly, they're happy to take your $100 a month, even if you're not producing. You're supporting their office.
Yeah. Well, it's a little different over here, but
yeah,
we're not, if you're not going to work, and look, here's what I say, work works.
Yeah.
If you're not going to work, we're not the right spot, because we have business standards and principles that we have to live by.
Yeah.
And we want the people that want it.
Yeah.
And I can't want it more for you than you.
Yeah. Right. And you know, it's funny because when people say to me, I mean, the 2 biggest things people say they get into real estate is, I want to help people, right? I want to help people and I love real estate. My new thought is, okay, what job doesn't help people? Anytime you get paid to do something, you're helping people. So why real estate? And then the other thought is, okay, you love real estate. Well, why aren't you going to be an architect? Why not a contractor? Why not an appraiser, an inspector, a real estate attorney? Like there's so many ways to be in real estate that isn't sales, that to say that you love real estate and you want to help people, that is not a good reason to be in real estate. And so that's why I want to be honest with people. Like I like to ask this question, if you could make 40,000 flat guaranteed no matter what, that's one choice. Or if you had the opportunity to make 80, but you could equally or more likely make 20, which would you go for? The most people in their heart of hearts probably are the 40,000 people, but they'll still answer the 80,000 if even the 20, because they have that unrealistic expectation. But if in your gut of gut, like I'm a 40K person, I need to know what I'm making. Like it's okay not to be your own boss. It's hard to be your own boss,
It certainly is. We did a day in the life last night.
Oh yeah.
And so a day in life of real estate agent. Okay. So I said, does anybody know what we all do?
Who is your audience?
People that want to get into real estate.
Okay. And what did they think?
They didn't have a lot of answers, which is okay. But I gave them the answers and some got off the Zoom.
That's good. You helped them.
I did.
You love them back into a job that actually pays.
Because I explained the day and I explained what we would be doing, calling people on the phone, asking them, hey, saw that you called us last year about buying a house, but I'm just curious, did you actually buy that house in Northeast Philly? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, great. Would you still like to own a home? I would. Great. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
So, and I said, you'll be doing that like as many times as you have to until you have appointments set. And gave them, so that's the thing. I think that one of the biggest industry problems is that people aren't honest about what the job really entails.
Yeah. It's a lot of heartbreak. It's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of, especially when you work. And I always tell people, like, you can make an amazing living by just living. Because if I've gotten people from my church, from CrossFit, from dance, from volunteer things that I do, from the neighborhood. Like, so go do the things that you love to do and you will naturally meet people. And if you sound smart about real estate and that you care, people will use your services. And at the same time, when somebody chooses another person, to help them, you have to swallow your pride and be the bigger person. So there's a lot of, I think, emotion management in our profession. And, we used to joke with a couple of people, like, there's no crying in real estate because there could be quite a few tears in real estate. And she's like, you should have a therapy, like a weekly therapy session. I'm like, what do you think this is? Like, we're meeting and talking about our attitudes, our habits, skills, knowledge, what we're like, how we're doing. This is basically real estate therapy. But it wasn't until I realized, I have to put boundaries on my life. Because like on the flip side, you could work your tail off and then you could start eating lunch in the car all the time, eating fast food all the time. You could not be going to the gym. You could be, I don't know how many breakups there have been over real estate agents doing too much work because they don't sacrifice or spend the time with their sweetheart. For me, I was like, I literally was telling the story last night to a friend that my car was making this weird noise and I kept one more appointment, and then I'll get it fixed. Timing belt snapped, hit a whole bunch of cylinders in the engine area. And then a $400 job was a $2,000 job. So that's like a great metaphor for one's health, one's relationship, one's life, that if you do not put those boundaries on your life, and set those parameters about what is acceptable business versus like what acceptable terms of doing your business versus not, like you could easily, like I did, I've gone up and down, 100 pounds, throughout my career, just because it's an emotional journey that one has to really learn how to master. Do you feel like that's applicable or resonates?
I mean, emotional intelligence is something that is definitely important in this industry, keeping ourselves in check emotionally, being the ones that are the rock. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of times people are like, "Why aren't you mad?" Or "What? Why aren't you like? Why aren't you celebrating?" Or "Why aren't you mad?" Or "Why?" I'm like, it's not like a numbing. It's more
It's a
like
distancing.
it's. I can't be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
So I say to you every time, all the time, you must have a lot. You have to have a lot of deals pending and in the works. Don't be attached to what happens to them.
Yeah.
I can't control humans.
Yeah.
I cannot control anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And that's enough. And that's been a hard thing, right? Being able to accept that you can't control other people. And if anybody tells you they're going to make you productive, that's nobody can make any human productive. All I can do is facilitate in an environment that creates, a place to be safe and a place to um, grow and support. But I can't do the action. I can't make the
Right.
call for you.
Yeah.
And here's the database. Here's all the things to say. Here's all the marketing up things you can that are already in place. But I can't pick up the phone and I
Yeah.
can't send the video for you. I send my own.
Yeah. And I think, I think I love what you're doing in terms of having standards, because the best thing that we can do for somebody is to help them get out of real estate and back into a day job if that's what is best for them, by saying, hey, you and I agreed to these actions would make you successful. And you said you wanted XYZ out of life, and this is what you're going to do with the money for your family or whatever. And you agreed to these actions, and week after week, we're struggling to get you to do these actions. So like you can troubleshoot that, but after a while it becomes clear. It's like a mirror up to up to them, saying like, is this really going to work for you? Or would it be better to be like, hey, I gave it a try. This just isn't for me. Like for example, I would not go to the gym if it were not a class environment. I would not go to my dance lesson if I weren't paying for it, like, so in different areas of life, I think we show up differently. Even, one person will show up differently. So I am not going to just go freeform on to the gym. But that's how most people show up to their real estate career. And they really need to show up for the class, and have that consistency and that trainer that's pushing them and getting the best out of them.
Right. So
You know?
they could, that's all the information. Now they have the information.
Yes.
Now they need to take the action
Yeah.
because the training isn't working. Not that it's not working. Training is not work.
Right.
Training is training.
Yeah. Training is training you how to do it. And that's actually another thing. So like in the industry, in terms of like what we provide, that, there's mentors, there's trainers, and there's coaches. And the way I like to think about this is like, a mentor is great to say, this is how I do it. Come watch me, shadow me, learn how I do it. Chances are that mentor is not great at everything. Like I don't do certain kinds of lead gen. I'm great at others. I don't do some kinds. So not that I couldn't do it well, I just don't like the follow up. But like, I'm just not going to be the best one to give you the advice on that per se, if you're going to shadow me as your mentor. And also, chances are a mentor kind of survived in the industry, didn't have a very, coherent training, it was like they didn't study, all the ways that you could be successful, right? So a trainer, on the other hand, is somebody who says, here are all the ways you could do it. So they're not in the field with you, they're in the classroom with you. So the mentor's in the field with you, showing how they do it well. The trainer's like, here's how you could be doing it well across the board. And then a coach is like, all right, now you know how to do it, go do it. So when you have those lines blurred, you're not really getting the best of what each offers. So for example, I love working with brokers. I have 2 broker clients that I'm helping implement this in their offices. And when we work together, we are figuring out how do we get the agents to show up the best for themselves. And the brokers have the client, or the relationship with their client, with their agents. I'm not the one that per se has that daily or weekly relationship with them. I'm the trainer. I'm here to present how you could be successful. And, yes, in my weekly sessions with them, there's like coaching along the way. But it's the broker that's going to really have that relationship in the way that they're like the coach for in that role. And then the mentor, the individual agents within the office that are the ones that are there in the field, they're the ones that answer those situational questions. So they may have like watched all my videos and downloads for how to use the agreement of sale, but now that they're putting it together, they really want somebody to be there with them. And then that agent can be there to help them implement it. So, I feel like the purposeful, proactive sequence training specifically on contracts has been desperately missing. And it's been falling on mentors and coaches, and it's just not working. It's just not working.
Right. That's not their specialty, right?
Right.
That's not their zone 10.
They're what? They're zone 10.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you take somebody who, maybe their greatness is in communication and selling, and and you want to say, okay, now, by the way, you need to teach them contracts. It's
Right.
probably not going to be successful,
Right.
because and that's why I actually, when I got in the business, I started a team immediately, within like very immediately, because I was not that other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it was very challenging not having that aptitude. And it actually, if you spend time trying to do something you're not good at, it takes away your energy and your vitality for what you are good at, and it dims your light.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that kind of goes back to the earlier conversation where that agent was deciding whether or not to go on this team. And I said, yeah, you think you might get the personalized service there, or, training and mentoring there, but they might be really too busy to take the eye off of their own lead generation. And then, 6 months later, he came off the team and was like, hey, remember our conversation? I was like, no, what did we talk about? And he told me what we talked about. And he's like, yeah, I really didn't get what I was looking for. So he joined all my programs, because what he really wanted was the training that he could be a strong, independent, confident solo agent. Because these teams are like marriages. And if you have constant breakups in your business because you got into bed too quickly, getting out of bed is really painful, and disruptive. So my goal is to really, like, if you want to be like, you may or may not want to be on a team, like that may be your personality, and you may find more enjoyment, because like it is a lonely business when you are a solo agent, in terms of like nobody's really as excited for you as you are, maybe your mom and dad, whatever, or spouse. But I want you to figure that out. Like, I want you to choose a team because you want to be on a team. I want you to be a strong solo. You need to be a strong agent no matter where you go. So let's get you strong and confident in what you know, and then you can decide. Because I mean, I'm sure you've seen it where it's like, I've seen like a rookie, and like I'm watching them, I'm seeing what they're doing, and then like suddenly they're in the top producers in the office. It's like, where did that person come out of? Like they just really rose to the top. So like, I want to give that people a fighting chance without clouding it by creating relationships that might be not productive for them, or, promises not kept because promises couldn't be kept because it was just untenable for the main team lead to do everything that agent needed and maintain the reason to hire the agent, which was excessive leads or more business than they can handle on their own,
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, I ran a big team at one point, and we're a brokerage for us.
Yeah.
So we run differently, and the majority of the time the agents are taking all the opportunities, and we're teaching them that, and we have some ISA scheduling of appointments, so we have systems and processes around, and we're like pretty crazy with the contracts in regards to making sure they're going out right. I said, in this marketplace, my God, if you have multiple offers and there's 10 offers and your contract is not perfect, why should the agent even look at it?
Yeah.
The main listing broker, whoever's handling the negotiation of that offer. In our company, Dara Ellis handles our negotiations of the offer. So we have everything broken up.
Yeah, that's great.
Into systems and into where people excel the best. And this way you're not trying to do something that you're not supposed to do. Although we still have to do stuff we don't want to do because there's a labor shortage.
Well, and
You haven't noticed.
yeah. And the thing is, it's like people don't know what they don't
Mhm.
know. So, sometimes I find that the new agent might have, even if they're taking my class, they might have that too much confidence. And I'm like, yeah, let's look at your contract. Let's look at it. I'm like, okay, like here, and here, and here is where we could like make tweaks, And it's like, oh, okay. So like, that's why it's really important for people to have guidance on the front end, like with me. And then in the in between stages when they're actually making the offer. Because again, it's like the peanut butter and jelly metaphor. They might be looking in the pantry for the bread, not in the freezer. And then, then they're like, all right, well, I'll just have peanut butter and jelly. I'll just eat it out of the jar, the goober grape jelly peanut butter combo.
So, Stacy, tell us about the different courses that you offer.
Okay, so I'm proud to say we're in 2 states. So we're in Pennsylvania and in Delaware. And that was really fun. My partner and I took at least 500 hours over this past summer to like dive deep into those contracts. And I tell you, when you dive deep into somebody else's contracts, it really shows you the mindset of your own state and the differences. And it really gets the other parties thinking about their own contracts and kind of reveals to us how little we might know our own contracts, or, like we don't read them often enough. So anyway, so we have a Pennsylvania and a Delaware, basically contracts working with clients boot camp. It used to be 2 separate boot camps where it was like everything from you have somebody who wants to meet with you. How do you pre-qualify them? How do you consult with them? How do you show them houses? How do you list their house? How do you get them to contract? That used to be one segment. And then now that they want to make an offer or you're receiving an offer, everything from contract to close, that was a separate boot camp. So in creating the Delaware boot camp, I was like, you know what? Let's just create a 14-week sequence that goes over all of it. So we do start with the contracts itself because agents will go out there and they might get a client tomorrow. So I want them at the very least to be able to see, here's an example of me putting together an offer and all the paperwork that goes along with it. So we start there. And then in later weeks, we'll go deeper and deeper into the contract, paragraph by paragraph or thematically. And then we'll talk about, closing costs, pricing, statistics, consultations, pre-qualifications, the rating game when I show houses to help people make a decision on the spot if they want the house or not. Selling as is, like how to market the home, how to price the home, So that's all in the 14 weeks, whether it's Delaware or Pennsylvania. And then I have a 15-week prospecting boot camp, which is really how to nurture and build the mind share of the people you already know, your top 150, over the course of the 15 weeks, how to put your database together, how to systematically reach out to them with value without being salesy. And so that has a lot more action to it and a less teachable content. But it does also go into like for sale by owners, expireds. And then later in the course, we talk about your annual touch program to nurture them over the year.
That's great. And so you could buy these courses just online and they could be taken at somebody's leisure at 8:00 at night.
Or midnight. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just subscription based. It's a fee that you pay over every month for, 6 months, and you take it, over time. So again, like it's 14 or 15 weeks. So that's about 4 months worth of content. And then, you have 6 months to complete it. And then if people want to be ongoing, because each of those comes with a weekly webinar workshop. And if you could bring the hot topic of the day. We could be talking about your deal. We could be talking about just something that you learned and have questions about. And a lot of times we might even talk about, creating the ideal schedule, how to manage oneself in time as opposed to time management.
Oh, yes. That's what so we just started our first boot camp of the year.
Yeah.
The time blocking. We started talking about managing time day one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I look at anything in this world. Like, you look at, the heads of any of these major companies, CEOs, and, they have the same number of hours in the day, yet they seem to accomplish so much more. So if you can manage your time or self in time, that's the vase in which you can pour the water, put the soil, grow the plant, put the flowers in, whatever you want to call it. So until you have that vase created, you can't put anything in it. And you're just going to be all over the place.
Right. Which is why we have 23,000 people still in our local MLS. Right?
Exactly.
So we started the conversation before we went live, and you told me how excited you were about this year. So what gives on that?
Well, So I have really, I would say, stripped away what's unnecessary in my day-to-day business. And I have a very solid partnership with my operations partner, Erin Whitman. She was my personal executive assistant. 9 years ago, I hired her. We worked together for 2 years solid. We joined a great team at the time. It was the right choice at the time. And then at the beginning of last year, so a year plus ago, we both decided that I personally wanted to focus more on my training platform and production. And I just felt like I needed to just like kind of narrow my field of vision and not worry about all the people around me so much and just focus on those who wanted my help. And so that's when, over the summer, after a couple years of dripping on this one broker, he hired me to put, 40 plus agents, through my boot camp. And we created the Delaware boot camp for his brokerage. And so now we can promote that to other brokerages. But just having that client is exciting because it's like 2 years ago, if you said that would happen, I would never have thought that. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I started working with a Pennsylvania broker in central PA to help her double her brokerage in a year. She has 5 agents. And so she wants to go to 9. And like, even though there's like a huge difference in numbers, like I love every kind of model. And I want to prove at every level that, proactive training of the agent in conjunction with leadership that wants the best for their agents and like has these standards, and like a mentorship program is really going to be the best for the agents to have the most success. So, I love coaching. Like, even though I'm a trainer at heart, I'm also a coach at heart. So the coaching is kind of, sometimes coaching is like 20% training, 80% coaching. I look at my training as 80% training, 20% coaching. So I'm coaching them to, get a transaction coordinator for the whole office, codify your buyer and seller guides. Like, let's get those into the lessons that you deliver to your agents. So they're excited because now they don't have to repeat themselves all the time. They're creating one video to explain how they deliver the buyer guide, one video to create, how to deliver the seller guide. And then when the agents do their job, which is to watch the video, download the download, look at it, they can ask intelligent questions. And the conversations become more high level when you're in person than me repeating to every new agent that comes to the office. I just save them from having the same conversation 10 times if they hire 10 agents to net 4, so that's exciting, when they start to get excited and build momentum. So I'm excited with them.
That's exciting. That's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I think
and production, and just helping my clients, I still have a very productive, sales business too. And so just like any, and let me just share this one thing. So this broker, each of their agents shared a word that they labeled the year, and they were concerned a little bit about her motivation level and that it kind of waxed and waned. It was like, she was all motivated 1 minute and then the next minute she wasn't, so her word was calm. And I was like, there's nothing more calming in this industry than having systems put into place, having routinized what you do every day. That to me is calm. So if you invest in your training and leveling up, and mastery is boring, right? Mastery is boring. So if you do,
that's where it all happens.
Exactly. Then you will have calm, and I would say like this past year has been a whirlwind for sure. But at the same time, I've never achieved more in my agent business and never more in my production business than this year. And it was because of the right partnership with my partner and the right technology of the learning management system that I'd already, delivered the content online. And it doesn't hurt that I'm passionate and I could sit at my computer for 10 hours on a Saturday and like produce the content, to put it all together. What I don't like is repeating myself,
Indeed. I do know, which is why we only onboard once a month.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. It's, yeah.
You don't be onboarding people every day and think you're going to get anything accomplished. So
yeah. I mean, I'd rather, hire slowly, fire quickly,
Yeah.
If you put the standards in place, you will hire fewer people. That is for sure. And guess what? That means your staff onboards fewer people. That means there's less turnover. And that means that there's less liability. And that's another thing that my broker, that I work with said, I am both of them. I am insurance for them. When they let their agents go through my training, they're learning the contracts, absent of that, it's a free for all. Like I've literally had agents come to me from a training class and say, isn't my time running out on the negotiations period because we gave our reply in 5 days, not 10 days? Like, where did you hear that? Yeah, where did you hear that? It used to be that way. It's not like that anymore. You always have that full time period. They're like, oh, I was taught that in class. It's like, oh, okay. All right. This is a story I'm going to be repeating forever. Like it's shocking. And it goes back to our question, what happens? This is my question about default termination and return of deposits. In case anybody was wondering, we left that kind of hanging. And
what was the question?
Yeah. So what happens if, let's say the buyer, the passage of time, the buyer asks the broker for their deposit back and the seller hasn't filed a claim? What happens? What can happen next, or what can't happen next?
Well, they can go to arbitration, but if nothing happens, you have 180 days. It's 180 days.
Well, so let's say that time clock is run out. The buyer's requested their money back. The broker gives it back within 30 days. Can the seller sue the buyer?
You can't give it back within 30 days without the release of the signature.
So the contract states that the seller has a certain amount of time. So it's
180 days in the contract. It could sit in escrow.
Right. I always shorten it to 15 to 30 days.
So
that's, well, no, but that's not the answer. So the point is that the seller has a finite amount of time to request the money. If the buyer requests their money back and it's not subject to a claim, the broker has 30 days to release it to the buyer. And actually it might be 60 days. I think it's 30. Anyway, there's a time period. I think it's within 30 days they have to release it. Mm-hmm. But the passage of time does not determine who is entitled to the deposits. The seller can still sue the buyer, even if the passage of time has allowed the broker to release the funds to the buyer.
That's why I'm not the broker.
There you go. So it's like it's again.
There's a lot of little things. Dara's really great at that. She knows like all the ins and outs. People will call and say, I want the money. She's like, it's 15 days. There's no. It's crazy how people don't know any of the answers.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of like, I say wear clean underwear so you don't get in an accident, well, you might hopefully you just wear clean underwear all the time, right? Like, the dirty stuff in case you get dirty, and the one time that you need that clause, you have it. And like I said, literally, I never needed the other clause until the summer. And then we got the seller to pay the points to get the buyer the rate that they wanted because they were feeling pressed and they were ready to walk away.
And they bought the house.
And I just got a great review from them online.
Oh, happy ending all around.
Happy ending all around.
I love it. So how can people find you, Stacy? Where can they register for your courses?
Sure. It's Agent University by Stacy. That's stacy.com. So there's a couple of, there's a drop down that says which boot camp is right for me. We still need to update in terms of like the working with clients and the contracts boot camp are going to be combined. So that's just going to be one boot camp. It's only $97 times 6 months. And then we need to add
value.
I know. And then the Delaware contracts boot camp, we need to update our website. We've been so busy delivering content that we haven't updated the website. But if anybody's interested, they can, if they and actually they could email me or click on I have an ebook called The Top 10 Ways the Real Estate Industry Fails Agents. And with that, I have suggestions for solutions at the back end.
Be the solution. The top 10 ways
the industry fails agents.
How did you decide to write that?
I just had to write down my philosophy, the way I saw the industry problem. And then I said, this is what I think is the solution. It's everything we've talked about today. And so you're looking for more brokerages to help or individually? Yeah. So individuals absolutely can sign up. When people engage on their own and they get great results. Sometimes, again, people have they have trouble being a self-starter or life gets lifey. I love working with brokers because there's more of a potential to impact more lives because, again, that broker provides that on the ground relationship with the agents and could also provide that mentorship, program that really helps combine their weekly accountability with the on the ground hand, holding that agents want. So to help the agents implement the training that they're learning online.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it could be Pennsylvania, Delaware, any brokerage. I can help any agent in any kind of brokerage. It's not brokerage specific.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that we were able to connect today on Be the Solution podcast. You certainly are being the solution
Thank
in
you.
our industry. Great work. I know that you run a tight ship with those contracts and everything that you do. It's very impressive, in fact, Stacy. So
Oh,
thank you for putting the time and the effort into doing that. I actually don't see very many people putting the time, effort, energy, or passion into that side of the business as you have. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I thank you for being on the show today.
And congratulations on the podcast. I mean, this is phenomenal.
Thank you. It's great. It's great. We get it out to a lot of people. A lot of people will, over the next however long, see it because it's on 24, I think, directory. So we'll have it published and out in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thanks so much, Maria.
Thankful and grateful. Great to see you.
You too. Take care.
Have a good one.
Thanks.